It's amazing. This guy who the New York Times has an article today. Um, it's referenced over on Democratic Underground as well by Brooklynite. Um, his name is Welch, and he goes by his middle name, which is Madison Welch. The guy who showed up at Comet Ping Pong, the pizzeria here in Washington D.C. with the assault rifle, because of the fake news that said that Hillary Clinton was running and John Podesta were running a child sex slave operation out of the back room of the pizzeria. He literally believed this. He said he went in thinking, as he made his way to Washington, he felt his heart breaking over the thought of innocent people suffering. Once he got to the pizzeria, there was an abrupt change of plans. Mr. Welch would not say why he took a military-style rifle inside the restaurant and fired it. According to court documents, Mr. Welch said he had come armed to help rescue the children. And even when he didn't find the children, he wasn't certain that they weren't just really well hidden. I mean, this is just awful. But here's the problem. Because of fake news like that, leading to an incident like that, which has become a thing, right? Everybody's talking about it. There are now these lists of fake news sites that include, real news sites like Crooks and Liars and Ring of Fire and some TPM, Josh Marshall's site, Talking Points Memo, was on this list of fake news sites. And if the Republicans and the media can get us hyped up enough to worry about fake news as a threat, what's the next step? Let's make sure that people only get news from real news sources that the administration can manage, news sources like the big corporate networks, so that there's no more, fake news out there, no more of that, Thom Hartmann fake news, no more of that Alex Jones fake news, no more of that, fill in the blank fake news, right? No more of that Think Progress fake news, no more of that, whatever it may be. We'll just all have to rely on Breitbart. It's like this, you go back to that reading that I shared with you last week from They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, the American reporter who in the 1940s, late 40s, early 50s perhaps, went over to Germany and met with 10 Germans who had been good Germans. They worked their jobs through the whole thing, right? College professor, a baker, a bricklayer, whatever, a bunch of them. And the one guy, the college professor, he said, please try to understand. Every step is small. And A goes to B, and then B goes to C, and each step is small enough that you don't speak out, you don't, your hair doesn't get lit on fire, you don't freak out, the masses don't run into the streets, because it's just a small step, a necessary step. We're sorry that we have to do this. We have to protect you from fake news. But we have to do it. After all, this guy walked into a pizzeria with a gun. And he said, if we knew when A started, for example, the German-owned firms' signs in the businesses back in 1933, and what that meant was no Jews here, right? The original signs, this is where it started. It was with businesses in Germany putting signs in their windows that said, German-owned. And if you could see that starting there, you would end up with the Holocaust, or you would end up with World War II. He said, if you could see that, step Z was going to be the consequence of starting at A, then certainly everybody would have been in the streets. But it took years, and there were all these small steps in between, with person after person after person basically selling out, rolling over, giving up, trying to normalize it, trying to make life normal, trying to reduce people's anxiety. I'm telling you, this is serious, serious stuff. Alec Baldwin tweeted about this. or actually he retweeted an article that was in the Atlantic. He tweeted and highlighted this quote: Mussolini's rise to power also exemplifies another authoritarian trait America has seen during this campaign. The charismatic leader who tests the limits of what the public, the press, and the political class will tolerate. This exploration begins early and is accomplished through controversial actions and threatening or humiliating remarks towards groups or individuals. Remember I just told you about the head of the union at Carrier, who Trump tweeted out his name, and now he's getting death threats or implicit death threats? Back to this article that Alec Baldwin tweeted out. This exploration begins early and is accomplished through controversial actions and threatening or humiliating remarks towards groups or individuals. It's designed to gauge the collective appetite and permission for verbal and physical violence and the use of extra-legal, outside the legal system, methods in policing and other realms. That is what's going on. Amanda Thom wrote a piece for the New York Times back the last week in November, November 29. It's titled, How Stable Are Democracies? Warning Signs Are Flashing Red. And in the January issue of the Journal of Democracy, they write, democracies are not as secure as you may think right now. And they're quoting this guy, Mr. Monk, M-O-U-N-K. He says, the warning signs are flashing red. Democratic consolidation is a political science theory. It's called democratic consolidation. It says that once countries develop democratic institutions and a robust civil society and a certain level of wealth, their democracy is secure. Well, it turns out when you look at that, it ain't true. And he says there's this early warning system. They've developed, Mr. Monk and Mr. Foa, these are the guys at this Journal of Democracy, in this article in Journal of Democracy. They developed this three-part formula to create an early warning system for a democracy about to collapse. The first factor is public support. How important to citizens think it is for their country to remain democratic. The second was public openness to non-democratic forms of government, such as military rule, having generals in the cabinet with the president running things. People feel okay with that? And the third factor was anti-system parties and movements, political parties and other major players whose core message is that the current system is illegitimate. If they're gaining support, your democracy is at risk. And they refer to the collapse of a democracy as deconsolidation. We saw this happen in Egypt. We saw this happen in Chile. We saw this happen in Argentina. We saw this happen in Italy, and before World War II. We saw it happen in Spain. Mussolini, Franco. We saw it obviously happen in Germany in the early 30s. We have seen this all over the world. We saw it in Iraq, and we saw it in Afghanistan. I got a whole rant about Iraq and Afghanistan, a little in just a minute. According to the Monk early warning system, signs of democratic deconsolidation in the United States and other liberal democracies are now similar to those in Venezuela before its crisis. Numerous countries, including Australia, Britain, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Sweden, and the United States, the percentage of people who say it is essential to live in a democracy has plummeted and is especially low among younger generations. The share of Americans, for example, the support for autocratic alternatives, the share of Americans who say that army rule, I'm quoting from the New York Times here, this piece by Amanda Thom, the share of Americans who say that army rule would be a good or very good thing, back in 1995, it was 1 out of 16 Americans said if the army ran this country, it would be a good or very good thing. Just in 1995, just what is that, 20 years ago. Now it's 1 in 6. From 1 in 16, from less than what is that, a little more than 5, in the neighborhood of 5%, to 1 in 6, which is what, 12, 13%? 1 in 5 would be 20%, so it must be something like that. I can't do math in my head that fast, but you get my point. I mean, it's pretty much tripled. And he said the trend is particularly strong among young people. 43% of older Americans believe it's illegitimate for the military to take over if the government is incompetent or failing to do its job. But only 19% of millennials agree that the military taking over the government is a bad thing. Only 19% of millennials say that. In Europe, 53% of older people think a military takeover would be a bad thing. It's illegitimate. Only 36% of European millennials believe that. In the United States, it's only 19%. Hannah Arendt, she wrote this book, The Origin of Totalitarianism. I bought it. I read this tweet a couple of days ago, and I bought the book. It arrived last night. I haven't had a chance to dig through it, but I was going to. Elliot Lustig, Lustig, Elliot with 2 L's and 2 T's, tweets, and I quote, Hannah Arendt, in her book, The Origin of Totalitarianism, provides a helpful guide for interpreting the language of fascists. She noted how decent liberals of 1930s Germany would fact-check the Nazis' bizarre claims that about the Jews, as if those claims were meant to be factual. What they failed to understand, Arendt suggests, is that the Nazi Jew-hating was not a statement of fact. It was a declaration of intent. So when someone would blame the Jews for Germany's defeat in World War I, naive people would counter by saying, there's no evidence of that. And what the Nazis were doing was not describing what was true, but what would have to be true to justify what they planned to do next. People not familiar with German history, or if you haven't read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, one of Hitler's major anti-Jewish routines in the early 30s was that Germany lost World War I because of the Jews, which then led to the humiliation and impoverishment of Germany through the Treaty of Versailles. He said, and then Elliot Lustig says, did 3 million illegals cast votes in this election? Clearly not. But fact-checking is just a way of playing their game. What Trump is saying is not that 3 million illegals voted. What he's saying is, I'm going to steal the voting rights of millions of Americans. Get ready. Pay attention. We need to be woke, right? We need to be wide awake, eyes open, right now, more than ever before.